You've known each other, what, 16 years?
16 years. I was a mere 14-year-old obnoxious adolescent when you met me, and now I'm a young, obnoxious 30-year-old. So,
see, we were gratified that you were calling in every 45 minutes, but also you were a pain in the ass, Michael, you and your group, especially the night when you played a tape over the telephone. I said, this is sheer madness.
Yeah, we worked on that for about a week. We put together a little 3-minute scene for you guys. It was a big, exciting part of my summer. It was. I would remember lying in the tub just trying to plan the next Who, What, Where scene for the next show. And
well, you were heavily into radio, right?
I was heavily into old-time radio shows. I loved the fact I could just listen to a half-hour drama and see it in my head. And when I was listening to WRBR's rebroadcasts of The Shadow, during the commercial breaks, you would have commercials for the responsive scene. And the way it came off in the commercials and the way it really was kind of two different things for me. But it was very exciting.
What two things?
The commercials made it seem more like it was a comedy review. I remember the commercials being full of one-liners. I remember there was a scene between you and Howard where Howard was saying he was a butcher he was advertising about a butcher in New York who was selling meat at very low prices. And he asked you, how could you sell meat at such a low price and still survive? And you went, well, it was very simple. I'm selling last year's meat. And then the way the show came up with the who, what, where, and the audience would call in with suggestions and play or direct, which was very exciting for a 14-year-old who wanted power.
How come you had such a big group behind you?
I had a group of about 4 other guys who we enjoyed playing with each other and doing gags, and the show was a great outlet for us.
But then, of course, I would say to you, you can't enter the Improv Olympics unless you get women.
Unless we get women, and that was kind of a hard problem to tackle since no women would go near us because at 14 we were hyper. We were doing Groucho Marx and repeating lines from old movies. But somehow one of the members of the group got 2 women to be involved, and they just loved it.
And they came to Armonk, as I remember.
They came to Armonk, which was also very tense because we knew they were there beyond that wall, but no, they're behind a closed, locked door, and you promised their mothers that their virtue would be intact. So
they were great women, by the way. Martha has always been my favorite.
There was Martha and there was Sherry. The great thing about the 2 of them was that they were the first female friends I ever had. First non-romantic, non-touch-feel, grope friends I had were females.
So would you say to have a female friend improvise?
Having a female friend improvising with her is a lot more freedom because you trust each other. You can take a lot more risks as opposed to what I would do sometimes with women I would improvise for the first time where I didn't know. It would just become one big seduction scene where they would allow me to do things with them on stage that I would not be able to do off stage.
Ah, that's an interesting theory. There are some people I understand who don't like to go off stage, who are only happy on stage because they're able to express themselves in a way that's different, and that is that everybody should look at them.
Yeah, I would play a woman who would say afterwards, it was amazing how uninhibited I was with you. I just put my legs over you, and wrap my arms around you and kiss you and hug you. I mean, thank you for giving me that freedom to play. And of course, I was very hot at that point, and I went, you're welcome.
Okay, now what did you learn out of this experience that accounts for your success in later life now that you're 30?
The ability to see the reality of the situation and making the best of it. It started when I had this group called Fool's Paradise, and the group was who we were. I didn't try to make it, well, we have to do drama or we have to do comedy. We did who we were, which were 14-year-old hyperactive kids. It's that ability to stay with me through shows. When I did the Inside Theater Company with Planned Parenthood, where they told me I had to do a show based on the concerns of teenagers. And I didn't know how to research it, but with the 10 teenagers I had there, So the show will be whoever they are and whatever they want to do. That's what the show will be, and I'll just provide the guidelines and the discipline.
All right, let me ask you, when you work with them, did you use games or some other way of focusing on what was happening? Let's say the girl has just discovered she's pregnant and she's 15.
It was not just one thing that helped me do the show. It was a combination of things. Because the way they were trained in improv was to say funny things quickly. I had to use spelling games which heavily emphasized the where and doing situations that went beyond words.
But the reason I ask you that is, didn't they have a focus of their own before they studied Viola's games?
Yeah, their focus was, these teenagers were heavily into friendship, heavily being into groups of men and female and listening to each other and talking to each other. And basically, I just took what they would talk about on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and I just put it on stage.
That's all sit-down stuff, right?
You know, it's sit-down stuff where we just talk a lot about, say, drugs, and we just spend all evening talking about drugs. Any topic we would handle, I would also have a professional group come in and do a workshop, and then we would talk about that.
A professional group?
Like when we do drugs, we would get a drug center to come in, and the guy would come in and talk to us, who is usually an ex-addict, a recovered reform addict. And then we just, after the person would leave, we would talk about what was just discussed and what kind of scenes could we do based on what the person said, and did anyone have similar experiences, or new people who had similar experiences.
But when you talked about sex, you didn't have to have a specialist come in, did you?
When we did sex, the president of the it was kind of funny. The president of Planned Parenthood came in and just talked about all the different types of birth control there were. I had to bite my tongue for the hour workshop because she came in with this big plastic vagina that was clear, and she pointed out all the different parts of it, and she would talk about condoms and IUDs and spermicide and the sponge. So we just talked about birth control devices, but after she left, we would talk about people who actually were engaged in sex, not in the group, but if you knew, it was always, did you know of someone who was having regular sex or wasn't using birth control?
Mm-hmm. So that would open up the topic. What were the main topics? We're leaving home.
We did peer. It was peer pressure. Peer pressure with drugs, to have sex, leaving home, finding a job, having difficulty in school, being accused of being a homosexual.
Anything about making friends?
We had one about making friends. Making friends who were different than the type of people you would normally hang out with. A monologue by a teenage girl who went to a costume party and she was assaulted by the father of the girl who threw the party. And we did these in unresolved sketches, unresolved so that we could encourage discussion afterwards, and leave them unresolved so that we could possibly come up with different ways of approaching the scene.
Now, you lasted, what, 9 months or a year?
It was about a year. We were in rehearsal, in workshops for about 5-6 months, and then we toured for about another 4 months. I have to say that the group that hired me never really knew. They knew what they wanted, they didn't know how to go about it. They didn't realize how long it would take.
Well, were they pleased when you were on CBC?
They were extremely pleased because that meant publicity for Planned Parenthood. But
fundraising publicity, right?
Fundraising publicity. But the Inside Theater Company was never just one thing. It was sponsored by Planned Parenthood, but its input was by homosexual independent groups, drug centers, family planning clinics. So there was a lot of input in the show.
Right. All right, now that, you can count 16 years or whatever it is between when we met, how many years has it been since you worked with those trainees?
With the teenagers?
Yeah.
The Inside Theater Company was 1982, so that was about 6 years ago, which is kind of scary because I have a TV tape which I watch every once in a while, and it's strange that I had that experience that so, well, I would consider early in my life, but at that point I was 24, but I already had some 10 years of improv and theatrical and social experience.
Okay, do any of those kids stay in touch with you?
Yeah, one of them has become a very close friend of mine, so we keep in touch. We speak at least once or twice a month, and I see him whenever I go to Toronto. The other people, I know what's going on with them, with the exception of maybe about 2 or 3. There was 10 people in the group itself. I lived with those kids for a year. A lot of them lived in my house for a while from time to time.
They left home and came and hung out with you?
There's one girl whose mother threw out of the house and just showed up at my doorstep, so she lived with me and my roommate for about 3 weeks. Other people I would sometimes throw parties there, and 1 or 2 of them would come, and they were too tired to go home, and the parents think it's fine. They're with Michael. The parents put an enormous amount of trust in me.
Well, I'm sure it was well-deserved.
I guess so. But it's more, I feel more in terms of a paternal figure towards them. I wonder how Anne is doing. I wonder if Marnie's okay.
Well, I'm interested in what they learn and what they're doing in improvisation.
Well, one person, Ralph Janakis, is in Toronto now trying to make it as an actor, but he's formed his own theatrical groups where they would develop material through improvisation. And so group creativity was an important part of whatever he would do. Some people were so turned on by the games themselves and didn't want to go into theater. They just wanted to continue doing the games. So
are they doing that now?
One has become a high school drama teacher, and she's very happy just day in, day out exploring the games.
Or would you give me her name?
I think it's this girl, Anne. I can't remember her last name, so that's something I'll have to look through my files. But
I would love to be in touch with one of your trainees.
They're more like family to me, yeah. But
see, we WASP think about skills. When you Italians and Jews think about feeling. It's all right.
Well, I can safely say I really grew to love each and every one of them. I guess if love is being concerned about someone's well-being, I guess I loved each and every one of them. Because I was also 24 and a lot of them were 16, 17, 18, it was very hard for me to keep that fine line between, teenager and adult. Even though I wasn't that much older than them, I had a lot more life experience than they did. Plus, they looked upon me as this bohemian from New York City who went to NYU and Strasbourg and stuff like that. So a lot of times I had to say, well, the reason why they love me so much and they're so dedicated to me is not so much because of me, but because of what I represent, or because I was always, the 2 years I lived in Canada, I was always introduced as, this is Michael from New York.
All right. Cut. Okay, let's talk about the Improv Olympics. You seem to be a better historian of that than I am. How everything went from, how what we were doing went from responsive scene into Improv Olympics.
Well, I noticed when originally you did the responsive scene, which was coming up with the who, what, where situation, and you invite the audience to stay on the air to be in the scene or to direct, it seemed like the directing options the audience had eventually became the events of the Improv Olympics. Whereas you give them a who, what, where situation, and they would say freeze, take it back in time, or more feeling, or play it for real, or find an ending. Eventually that seemed to become the events of the Improv Olympics, of time dash and emotional hurdle and character relay. I've had kind of, for the past 16 years, of frustration with the Improv Olympics, which I think is very similar to what you've had, in that I feel I've never been involved in it where it was done the way I felt it always should be done. This would be the perfect way to do the Olympics.
But hang on, I remember when we were at the Space for Innovative Development having very satisfying matches with Linda Stein, the captain of one team, and Lynn.
Oh, that was very satisfying. I mean, I've had
last name Lynn
Burnfield.
Burnfield as the captain of the other team, and there were like 4 or 5 people on each team, and so I got so carried away I threw my fist into the wall and playing a character, and it hurt me for like 9 months after that. But
I think maybe I wasn't. The frustration I've had was later with the Olympics as a producer, but originally as a player, I've had extremely satisfying, memorable evenings.
right,
at
remember
Space
when
for
you
Innovative
beat the
Development.
adults? Your team came in from, where was it?
Jamaica Queens, that was like the most ultimate orgasm.
Or Forest Hills.
Kicking the shit out of the professional adult team.
And we had some heavy-duty players. We had John Tanner, we had that gorgeous Jewish girl, and we had a Spanish dude, as I remember it. 3 or 4 or 5 people.
And I also remember that the scoring was based on teamwork and doing the theme and agreement. And I remember we scored heavily on the teamwork and heavily on the agreement, which was like what we were always scoring the lowest in as teenagers, because we would deny and grandstand and try to steal the stage from each other.
But when it went to Canada, the homemade theater decided to turn it more into a sport, right? Where you give points for the number of seconds elapsed or for the number of objects created in the wear or whatever.
I was extremely frustrated 2 years in Canada doing the Olympics because, I mean, on a visible scale, it was the most successful. It was done in 24 high schools and all these different teams, and the final event would be at the National Arts Center. But it seemed that everyone was in for the publicity, the show, but not the content. You had all these drama teachers who wanted to be on the judging committee and wanted to decide what color T-shirt the team members would wear, but they didn't want to devote 5 hours a week to train them in sport games.
Saying that the organization was more important to them than the actual work, right?
Yeah, because no matter what, I mean, if a team went up there and one of the players just go gaga goo goo, there would be someone's mother out there going, "My baby is beautiful," or "Isn't it wonderful we're all here together?"
The interesting thing for me was always silent wrestling, as we used to call it, because one girl and one boy would come out and they would cross their arms and they would take a kind of a menacing stance and they would look at each other hostilely for about 3 minutes, and then that was the end of the scene. And then
sometimes there was sighs, like,
right.
And eventually they erased that event because it was too difficult.
Well, because they didn't have any wear, that's why. If they had wear...
Always, but when I did workshops for the Olympics, which I was only allowed to do 2 weeks before the matches, where I figured if the big 2-week play session is going to be in May, then October through April, you should be doing workshops. But I only be allowed to do them 2 weeks beforehand, and all I do were wear workshops. And a lot of times I met resistance because all I have to do is say something funny, and audience will love me, or just stand here and look pissed off.
Well, actually, they didn't have the experience. Like, when I did that same sound wrestling with Rinda Lalumia and David, whatever his name is, the finest player in, Wilcox's group, as far as I know. I gave him, sound wrestling. It's the 2 minutes after the most perfect orgasm you ever had in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Dorinda tore that up. And so did David. I put them in a motel with a balcony, where the balcony was 105 degrees and the inside was like 60. Okay? And then as the concept developed, as the game developed, a porter would come in and serve them champagne or something, and go out. And they would tip him and pay him everything without saying a word. It was intense.
Silent wrestling has always been one of my favorite events because it's the one where you have to be the most real. People think, I can't talk for 3 minutes. What am I going to do? It's like, you've never been in a room with someone where you just didn't want to deal with them, so you just made believe you're reading something or making something or building something, But
you have to have the right suggestion. For instance, when we were at the South Street Seaport, Harry was given silent wrestling with your brother. You haven't seen him for 25 years. and he was making breakfast, and he was so much love in his making breakfast for this long-lost brother that the game had to work.
It seemed like a lot of suggestions also people gave for that event. We also has to have some kind of gag or trick, in, like a father turning on his son to grass for the first time, or a guy just brings his brother's car home and has a big dent in it. The brother finds out for the first time. But
I mean, that's not so unreal. I was in '84, Santa Monica Pier. I gave that to two Germans to do who don't know nothing about, improvisation in English. And they said, "How do you do it?" I said, "The first line is mein Gott, and the last line is oh mein Vater," or whatever. In other words, the car has been destroyed by one of the brothers, and then all of a sudden they think about, what is the father going to say, okay? They did that fine, two economics students.
I had one suggestion that I'd never seen done well. I guess maybe it can't be, but two people suddenly discover they can read each other's minds.
Oh, give that to Severin Darden to do.
Oh, really?
For you, yeah.
People just suddenly discover they can read each other's minds? Because it seems like in that one you really need a lot of trust and agreement and heavy concentration.
Oh, yeah. Or Alan Alda would be glad to do that.
I can see him doing that.
He did intuition in all his workshops.
Isn't he he had some kind of game where people sit in different corners of the workshop and they all draw something
Yes.
and try to see if they were in sync?
They are, too. They all draw the moon
I heard
or
it.
whatever.
And the stars, something like that.
Or a fish, or, a tree, or, like 70% of them come up with the same thing.
I guess the big frustration with Canada in the Olympics is that they had the sources, but they weren't willing to put in the training. And
But I mean, we ended up in the Bronx where we had 11 teams with 5 events.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. We got down on 5 events.
It's down something like that in Canada now. It's like 4 or 5 improv games, and all of them are, I think, mostly verbal. They have an emotion one, and but they only give, I think, 2 emotions.
Whereas Johnstone is up to 50 events.
Oh, Johnstone's work was totally ripped apart in Ottawa and Toronto. Sports theater, they make it seem like just an evening where the audience ridicules the players.
Mm.
That's what it's all about. And it's not about play at all.
Well, it can't go that direction where the judges tell players, for instance, to get off the stage and put a hat on their head or to take a coconut custard pie in the face.
Mm-hmm. And this book, Improv, it's not really about that at all. I mean, a third of the book's about his theory of sports, but the rest of it's based on status and masks and a trance state.
And stories.
And stories. And
it's a great book.
I loved the book. Because first I was exposed to their sports games in Canada, and then when I came down to do improv at the comic strip, someone told me about his book, and I read it, and status became a very important part of my work also. When I realized that in every scene there's a status, there's a high-low status, and just being aware of it and knowing how to play it.
Right.
And when I would do it at the Manhattan Punchline, status was an incredibly difficult game for people to do. But every once in a while, there'd be 2 players who really knew how to do it well. And it was just extraordinary. And then you can go, this is the way it should be done.
Well, Robin Williams would know how to do that, right?
No, I worked with Robin Williams at the comic strip, and he was never interested in games that did not require just strong emphasis on verbalization. Although I did get him to do a silent game once, and it was very successful, but at the end he came over to me and, oh, that's hard. And he was sweating heavily. It was like, you bastard, you made me work.
What's silent game?
We did something called slow motion commentary, where the audience would give you an everyday common activity. It could be shaving, it could be making a cup of coffee. I think his was shaving. And then there'd be a comedian off stage as an announcer who would announce the activity as if it was a sporting event. Like, okay, Robin's now coming to the sink. It looks good. He's loosening up his neck, and he's going for the water. Oh, it's a little hot now. Oh, he's butterscreening this. I think he might get some points now in time. And we just played like that. And it was always a very funny game, but it was also very difficult to do in workshop because you have to listen, and the person who's announcing it to be aware that you're creating a reality there. Maybe he'll add something for you. And a lot of times I have resistance from comedians doing that. For every 4 or 5 shows, it would work perfectly. But Robin was kind of pissed, but not pissed. That he wanted to do something really easily. Because for him, improv is going up there and within any given situation, taking all his material, all his stand-up, and putting it into that one situation. And people get the wrong idea of improv from him because they go, wow, how is he can think of all these things so quickly? He's not making it all up. He's taking the stand-up and putting it in any given situation you put him in. But when he does play by the rules, he's extraordinary. Because I remember talking to the producer of Sills & Company, he said out in L.A., Robin would play the games.
Yeah, I heard he went out there several times.
Yeah, and after jerking off 2 or 3 times, they went, look, if you're going to come here and play on our stage, you got to play by our rules.
Right.
And he would, and it was brilliant.
Well, he plays on several stages. He plays in the improvisation stage.
He does.
Sills & Company.
Chicago City Limits, I saw him at.
Rising Star or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, he likes to go around when he's not working and play at different stages every night, right?
I wish I had that, to be able to just walk into Second City in Chicago and go, I want to be a part of this set, and they go, great. Mm-hmm. And without any announcement, they throw you on stage, and you get a chance to work and explore.
Well, perhaps we'll issue you a little pass, you see, where it says you will be able to play on stage of Workshop Second.
That would be beautiful. I think that's why in the beginning, Robin, when he played with us, had all his emphasis that he was the guest star and suddenly had to be brilliant and had to be expected to do what he normally did.
Now, how would you judge whether a person was in the first level or the second? I just put you in the second. Actually, you deserve to be in the fourth, probably. But we try you out in the second and let you go rapidly to the fourth, okay? And then it goes 5, 6, then it goes ETC, then it goes Touring Company 1, Touring Company 2, then Resco.
Well, with the comic strip, I had to put people in the events they did the best. During showtime, I really couldn't put them in things that would test them. I had to put them in things I knew they did well. If someone was good in emotions, I put them in an emotional event. If someone was good with wear, that's why I put them in. But if somebody like Robin would come in to play with us, I would have to, because of the audience, put him in towards the very end of the show. Otherwise, if he came in the beginning, the audience would go crazy, and then they wouldn't watch anyone else.
Hard act to follow.
Definitely a hard act to follow, and just wonder when he would come on. But when he played with us, he never looked like Robin Williams. He played with us for about a year when he was making Moscow on the Hudson. And he had long hair and a beard, so when he would get on stage and start playing, it took about a minute or two for the audience to go, is that the fuck? Is that what I think it is? It's Robin! And that was very exciting.
But by the way, when you travel, what do people take you for? I am taken to be either professor. Was a professor.
Gee, what I'm currently masquerading as. That's hard. You pick the year, and I'm doing something different.
No, but what do they take you?
People take me as a comedian.
I'm not saying what
they take me as a comedian because I say
what?
As a comedian because I'm always saying funny things and a fun guy to be around. Obviously, I must be a comedian.
Well, I'm always saying funny things too, but they take me to be a professor or a psychologist.
A psychologist, I can see
that. Because of the length of the hair, I guess.
Every once in a while, because I maybe have a briefcase full of notes, they think, well, obviously you must be a writer.
Well, if you had the same kind of clothes that Paul Sills wears, maybe they would take you to be a director of improvisation.
Well, for a while I walked around with a beard and long hair, and that's what people took me for, especially when I was living in Canada.
Well, where are your baggy pants?
Must be at home. If I could wear a pair of jeans and a sweatshirt for the rest of my life, I'd be really happy. But that's what happens when the reality of the world is when you get married, your wife will call to coordinate you, and there's just no fighting it. It may take a year or 2 years, but eventually you're going to be in that Sears Brothers suit. And
that's right.
So I'm still, I got my Reeboks.
Don't you understand when you go out into the world, Michael, whether you go to Massachusetts, Vermont, or Virginia, whatever, you should present yourself as a director of improvisation, right?
Should I? I mean, I always expect that's like a part of my work, but as a whole, on many different things, on the moon and the sun. I mean, that's the way I was known in Canada because that's mostly what I did. Though I also directed and acted in things. I was mostly known for doing workshops at the Improv Olympics and emceeing the matches, and then I was also this guy who conceived and put together the Insight Theater Company.
Well, yeah, I don't accept any other part of your life. I don't accept,
You just care about my improv stuff. That's all you care about. That's all you suck out my
life or your family.
My role-playing, my improv stuff. It's always there. Whether I write, direct, or act, improv is always there.
All right, good. Now, we've got to get you a gig as director of improvisation.
I tried. I taught a really successful class at NYU last year. 13 students were in the class, and they gave me a horrible schedule, 9 to 5 for 3 consecutive Saturdays. And these people came out from Staten Island and New Jersey to be in my hot, sweaty class. And a lot of them were business students that thought this would be great to have as a part of the curriculum because emphasizes my interpersonal skills. And
What, did you give them business role plays to play?
in some scenes I did the employer-employee scenario.
Yeah, right. The first day and the last day is great.
Oh, yeah, we did a lot of that.
The personnel director is great.
And some people into play what they do at work, and if you have the opportunity to tell your boss off, how would you do it?
Well, do you need games to do that, or can you do it without?
I have a set structure. From the X amount of years I've been doing workshops, I have 3 steps. I begin with technique games, and then I begin with characters. Second part is characters, and the third part is scenarios.
So what do you mean by a scenario?
Who, what, where scene. It could be
One scene?
one scene or a series of scenes with a connecting theme, which is what I did with the Inside Theater Company, the theme being teenage awareness.
Okay, so that's the scenario, teenage awareness. And then you have the who, the what?
You know, break up to maybe 5 who, what, where scenes. Who's in the scene, where the scene's taking place, and what's going on. And,
Well, could you give me an example of that? Who's in the scene?
who's in the scene? A mother and a teenage daughter. And the scene,
Where is it?
it's set in the kitchen.
Okay, and what's going on?
The teenage daughter is telling her mother that she's going out Friday night and she's not going to come home until Saturday morning.
Okay. That's called the scenario?
That could be a scenario. Could be teenage rebellion. Could be that scenario.
Well, maybe do you follow that through to the end, to Saturday morning? It seems to me that you got to show the various steps.
Yeah, what I would do is
every hour between now and Saturday
we
morning,
would
right?
explore the scenario, and then the class would direct it. Go, okay, freeze. Take it to that evening with the boyfriend in the car. Freeze. Take it to the daughter coming through the front door. Take it to 2 weeks later. The daughter says she's going to do it again.
Uh-oh.
So we would have a specific scenario workshop, whereas I would tell them, like, this scene can go on for 2 minutes, it can go on for 2 hours, it's up to you. And if there are no directions after 2 minutes, I go, freeze. Is this scene really perfect? Are you, like, totally satisfied? Is this the way, are you happy to stay here for the next 2 hours and watch it? Okay, then.
But in fact, how would you cut down that scene where the girl said to her mother, I'll be out until tomorrow morning?
Well,
How do you deal with it?
I can cut it down to a tight 3 minutes, probably within 4 hours of playing it, where I'll let them play the scene for 15 minutes, and I would stop it, and then we discuss the scene about what were the highlights in this scene. Then we do it a second time and make them remember the highlights, and then they'll find some other things.
But do you lay out a scenario in your mind, or do you ask one of them to lay out a scenario in his or her mind?
No, I always get them to give me just the beginning, middle, and end. I don't want, because then you be getting into playwriting. Going, okay, then the first person touches her, and then.
Hey, playwright, that's time dash you're talking about.
Well, just as long as you just put specifics. All I want to know is where they are, what's happening, what's going on, and
Yeah,
then
but
do
I'm
it.
saying, should it be a 25 scene scenario or a 3 scene scenario, or what?
That I can't say an exact number. It all depends on the scenario itself. If you think it could be explored through 5 different changes, then that's the way it could be explored.
Well, if I was directing Time Dash, and I started in 1984 to direct it from the audience, right?
Mhm.
I would ask for that moment, then I would ask to go forward to when the guy picks her up, wherever that is. Then I would ask for them to, I don't know, get into a car or walk to wherever they're going, and then I would ask to see a little piece of that coming into the affair, whether it's a dance or party or whatever, and then I would ask to see halfway through that, and then the end of that, and I would ask to see what happens to the 2 of them, where they go, and then I would ask to see a half an hour later, and a half an hour later, and then I would ask to see getting up in the morning, and then delivering the woman to the door, or putting her in her taxi, or letting her go home on her bicycle, or whatever.
Well,
Okay,
I guess what you can
that's
say then that
15 scenes right there, right?
you can always say, well, to explore a scenario, maybe you need at least 5 to 10 changes, but you can go on to maybe 30 or 40. all depends.
Yeah,
So when you
just
feel
the same way with videotape. You can turn on a videotape every hour for 1 minute.
Oh, yeah, and then
they have
as-
25 minutes of tape.
and then you, as the moderator or the director or whatever, have to decide, okay, have I learned enough now? Can I now begin to put something together if you're putting together a show, or has the scenario answered all the questions for me? There's nothing else I want to know about the scenario.
Well, what do you think the audience would do if they were given that? Let's say it's an audience of 16-year-olds in Toronto who get the suggestion of a young woman, 15 years old, telling her mother she's going to go out tonight and she's not going to come back till tomorrow morning. What would they do if they had the power to direct it their way?
Well, first, you would hear nothing but silence for about 3 minutes because they'd be in total shock.
Right.
That suddenly you tell them, you are now in control of something. They will freeze, and that's always what happens.
Uh-huh.
And then you have to do some way of controlling them to get them involved in it, and then the first suggestion may be a joke suggestion. It may be something obscene, maybe something to test them. And then you have to kind of go as a director, look, we're not here to set up obstacles. We're here to play realistic situations. And then someone will give a realistic situation, then everyone else will follow through.
Uh-huh.
And then it's wonderful.
Then
Then
the realistic situation, go forward to the dance?
Instead of going, well, he's trying to get her bra off and his fingers caught in a snap. It's like, okay, right, we're playing comedy now. That's fine if you want to do that, but we're trying to solve a problem here. We're trying to find an answer to something.
What is the problem?
The problem is, why is this girl staying out until tomorrow morning?
Why does she need to stay out?
Why does she need to stay out? Or why does she need not to go to bed that night? What is different about this evening?
Uh-huh.
But usually this takes first shock and then giggles and then joke suggestions and then they fall right into it. And then you have to stop them because they want to go on for the next 2 or 3 hours.
Really?
Then it's exhilarating because afterwards when it's over they usually applaud you if you're a guest at some workshop or something. It's like, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be able to almost direct my own TV show.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's what it's all about, I think. Responsive scene, which I now call HOT, hands-on theater, which probably should be called the director's format or something like that.
It seems like people take the opportunity to direct something almost as much as being in the classroom going, okay, ask a question. So people have that defense mechanism where I don't want to seem stupid or something. It's like, ooh, because I always make it clear, whatever suggestion you give me, we'll play it.
What was that about Richard Mover?
Richard Mover came up with a great idea, which we're still trying to put together, where the main theme is This Is Your Life, based on the This Is Your Life TV show, where you would say, throwing a birthday party for Connie, you would hire us, myself and 2 or 3 other actors, and we would do a This Is Your Life thing for Connie. You would give us information about her life, and we do This Is Your Life Connie, and we get someone to play her old high school teacher and someone to be her first patient, and
I hear you.
just play with it that way. And we do maybe 20 minutes, and we won't just be a small part of the party, not the entire party. So we just started talking about doing that and how it could be marketed.
Well, I don't want to cut in on Richard Mover's, terrain, but I think that's a great idea.
It's a great idea. It's unfortunate. The problems we've fallen into so far, we found a person who would love to market it, who in fact is Gabby Belson, who worked with you at one point doing PR, is that everyone, again, it's like the Olympics, everyone wants to be involved in it part-time. And it's not a part-time thing. This is a full-time responsibility. And originally they wanted me for my improv experience, but they know I also have experience in producing. They wanted me to produce it and direct and put everything together, and I don't want to be put in a situation where just because I know how to do something, I do 90% of the work.
Well, if you have Gabby Belson and a team of 3 or 4 people, you can just go out and how many gigs you get?
Well, we're talking big bucks, talking about publicity and advertising and mailings, and apparently there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of theatrical groups that do parties with themes. No one I know of yet has done This Is Your Life type thing. But they do parties where they might come over and do a medieval night for you.
Well, yeah, I've been to those parties myself. I went to a hippie party in the 60s where dentists would put on white T-shirts and mark them up with magic markers and whatnot and call themselves hippies and have a hippie party.
Oh yeah, and they also have those theme type parties where it's where you would go and find into a haunted house and you would solve a mystery. They even have videotapes like that where they have 2 or 3 different endings, and you know, like punching the thing, you decide what the ending is going to be. I think it's something like what you want to do with Chicago Cable, where how would the scene end, and the audience, you know, be watching, like punch 2 or 3 buttons, and they decide how the scene would end or who would be in it.
Yeah, Q, that's called.
And once in a while, they do that on TV shows now, where you call this 800 number during the commercial, and you decide what the ending is. And they'll play that, you know, specific reel that they already shot.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and then the show prophecy come true.
Yeah, thank you. Newhart had such a show where there were 2 or 3 endings to every scene that he did, and the audience, the studio audience would tell him which one to put on, and then he'd put on not a live performance, but a canned.
Yeah, and there was even the movie Clue, where depending on the theater you saw the movie in, had a different ending.
Right. And there was this recent musical on Broadway in which there were, I think, 2 or 3 dozen ways to go through the plot, depending on which way the audience voted,
Mm-hmm.
right?
A lot of times you see shows like that done at usually places like La Mama. And it's really good when it's done on a large commercial scale like that.
Well, Michael, you were talking about, you know, what improvisation has done for you.
Well, I said at the beginning of this interview, where for me, group creativity and improvisation is being able to see the reality of a situation, and having the means, the tools to adapt to it, and find a way to work best within it.
Okay, and that led you to, as I remember you said, several beautiful women in your life?
Several beautiful women. I probably would not have gotten married had it not been for improv. I think I might as well state that right now.
On top of which you had to go to Canada.
I had to go to
Canada
find a wife, to find myself. Really violent stage fright for 2 straight years was hitting on me ever since you and I drove up to Canada in '79, giving a brilliant display of what the Improv Olympics is really all about. I was telling me, you know, how is it that you work with public relations by day and do theater at night? You know, why can't you just go someplace and do theater 24 hours a day? And I went, there is no such animal. He went, well, come to Canada. So after half the savings I invested in the show flopped, I went, hey, let's go to Canada. At first, I earned my living doing improv workshops and teaching in the high schools, illegally, I might add. I started doing Planned Parenthood, and that led to a children's theater group and acting, and it was just that I was soon being hired as a guy who would go into a situation and go, okay, this is how you can put on the show here.
All right.
This is how you can use these people, this space, and these resources. This is how you can put on the show. And I would do it.
Great. Okay, now, having learned all this, what do you want to do next year?
You know, Michael still doesn't know what he wants to be when he grows up, and I'll probably be like that until I die. Currently, I'm masquerading this year as a screenwriter / college administrator.
But each of those activities uses your improvisational ability to full.
Well, I think my dream is to be at some college in New England where I would my week would be full of doing improv workshops and developing improv shows and teaching improv theory. No such job exists. I'll probably have to create it one day. But that's my dream. I will never achieve that dream, but that's my dream.
All right, now just may I ask, why won't you achieve the dream?
Because everywhere I've done my best improv work, I've always met resistance because the general public, people, theatrical people, artistic people, well-educated people are afraid of improv or don't understand it. When I tried to bring improv to the high schools, I've met resistance because I was this weird person. And if you're going to get involved in this project, you're going to become weird too. And when I did improv in the theater, classically trained actors were afraid of it because they thought improv was thinking quickly on your feet and saying funny things 1 second after another. Because people just tell me I can't do improv because I'm not funny.
What about Richard Mover's improv group, which is, I understand, senior citizens or whatever, he doesn't seem to have that problem.
Yeah, but he doesn't make a living off of it. I mean, most of the times I do improv projects for myself. I taught a 2-credit course in New York University last year for free, just so that last summer I would not go off the walls and kill myself.
Well, you mean to say that Richard Mover's not paid a dime for showing up at these senior
He's
citizens?
paid a small stipend. I think he makes something like about $50, but $50 every 2 or 3 weeks is not going to make a good living. Unless he eats macaroni and cheese for the rest of his life.
Why can't you do that at night and on the weekends, for instance?
Well, I was doing it on nights and weekends for a while, and then it ended. I was teaching improv classes at Manhattan Punchline for 2 years. But they were interested in making money, which you can't blame them for, but they got down on me because I would make people work. It was always, any workshop I did was a satisfying workshop for the people involved, but after a while they wanted me just get the people in, bullshit for 2 hours, tell them they're brilliant, and get them out and get the money. And to me it's like, well, then I might as well just type for the rest of my life.
Well, if you were working with senior citizens or, let's say, homeless people or junior high school students or ex-cons or whatever, that wouldn't happen, would it?
No, that wouldn't happen. I mean, it's a hard question to answer, David. It's getting to my life now, and that's I don't know.
Have you ever thought of writing scenarios for improvisational theater? For instance, I need umpteen scenarios involving 2, 3, or 4 people for this video improv game that we're designing right now.
I've thought of writing scenarios. I've also thought of writing a book, but that's rather an audacious thing for me to say at 30. But
well, if you were to write even one scenario involving 2 people, we might try to do it a week from Sunday because we're going to have another session. You know, you wouldn't even have to come. We would just mail you the tape.
Well, that'd be wonderful. I could do that. You know,
Okay.
give me a day or 2 or 1 hour.
Right.
But then my life is weird. You know, I may, at this point, I may never do improv again for the rest of my life, or I may next week be in someone's workshop or doing a workshop.
Well, one thing I noticed about you is that you move differently from the first day I met you, where your movement was very much forward and back, you know, whereas now it's to the side and more flowing. I don't know whether that has to do with, you know, doubling your age, or whether it has to do with a different bodily feeling that you developed.
And I find I have to move around a lot whenever I do a workshop, because I can have anywhere between 5 to 20 people in the workshop. Because I'm tired and I've had some beer to drink. I don't know.
No, what I'm saying is that you seem to be much more on your feet, you know, than you were when I first met you.
I think where I was then, 16 years ago, and what I am now, I'm just beginning to get an idea of what I am and what I do. Okay,
So, the first is, you say you credit improvisation with certain skills that you have now?
it's giving me the skills to recognize reality of any situation I'm in and being able to adapt the best way I could in that situation.
Well, what about making friends?
About making friends,
Women friends?
well, I play a role, and I'll play a role that will get them to like me the best, whether it's the sensitive Michael Golding or the humorous one or the insightful one. I guess I'm coming off as kind of a manipulative, shallow person, but that was then, this is now.
You've been successful in making women friends.
Well, it's not so much women friends, it's, I guess, friends in general, where I can basically find myself with any group of people and figure out what they're like and try to be the best non-threatening person I could be to that person. You know, I could be hostile also, but you know, just being able to recognize the situation right now and go, okay, what role can I play in this situation? Okay, I'll play this role.
Okay, and that led to certain engagements, friendships, and whatnot.
Oh yeah, well, you know, I mean, it's led to genuine friendships where because I felt comfortable, the other first person felt comfortable. A lot of friendships I made have been through improv workshops. People I've met as actors, and then because we like each other so much, because you have to bring so much of your own life into it, I make friends with them.
So
Richard Mover and Bill Balzac have been my two most recent friends in improv, and I've known them for 6 years.
now, Mover, you say, is invented a new theater, the Day in Your Life.
He has this great idea for a game that we're still trying to figure it out. The central theme is This Is Your Life, based on the old This Is Your Life show from the 50s, where we as a group of actors would be hired to do a party. It could be a party for, like, your birthday. And Connie would give us certain facts about you, like where you went to high school. We would give her a check sheet of 20 questions, like where you went to high school, favorite hobbies, people you like to keep in touch with. And then in the middle of the party for you, we go, David Shepard, this is your life. And we have
And do you use people in the audience?
So we could use people in the audience, but we'll create characters based on people in your life. And we'll have fun with it and play with it, and of course get you on to interact with us. And then it'll be over in 20 minutes.
And how much money do you make doing that?
Well, we're coming up with a fee, and the general fee right now seems to be something like between $200 to $500.
Okay, that's good.
But again, this is something you can't do on a part-time basis. You have to do it full-time. We met with a friend of mine who's a marketing person who said the only way you can do this is you go to a bank, get a business loan of anywhere between $5,000 to $10,000, and you put out seed money, and you start a publicity campaign, and you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, everyone looks at me like, okay, Michael, because I also have the producing experience, so it's, no, if we're in this, we're all in this together. So I'm waiting for 5 people to have the same enthusiasm I would have, and then we'll do it. Until then, good idea.
So you can do it once a month, if they get that much,
That's the way the original look at it is. Maybe once in a while, someone said, let's do a party, we get together, we find some workshop space, we do it, we go, we get some money.
Okay.
But if we want to do it as a full-time thing,
if you want to leave your job,
I
mean, you do have nights, you do have weekends, you could train a group of people to improvise, right?
Oh yeah, we can do that.
But what are the people in the world most important to you to train to improvise?
Still discovering that. So far I've had, I think, every different imaginable group possible. I've had adults who had non-theatrical experiences, had teenagers, had children, 9 to 12-year-olds.
You're in New York. Who would you most like to be with for 3 hours a week?
I guess people who have daytime jobs who are looking for some kind of release. 5 years ago, I might have said I want straightforward actors. I don't want comedians. I don't want stand-ups. I want straightforward actors. But they're always looking for, let's do little plays. Let's do little scenes. And that's fine if you want to make a play. But if you just wanted to play for the sake of playing and discovering things, you get real people. The realest scene I've ever seen has been from non-professionals. It's when we were doing the Inside Theater Company.
Mm-hmm.
And
what was that theme?
Right. The theme was homosexuality. And we had someone from a group called Gays of Ottawa who was the president of it. But the thing was, even though he came out of the closet for himself and other gays, as far as the straight world was concerned, he was straight. Mm-hmm. And he was telling us how the hardest thing in his life was when he realized that he was gay, and he was married and had 2 children, they were 9 and 10, and you had to tell them that, one, I'm divorcing your mother, I still love you, and I'm going to live with this other man, because I love him too, and I'm gay. And I said, it would be really great if we can play that scene. So we got 2 of the teenagers from the audience, and I just told them, play it as real as possible. No jokes, no nothing, as real as possible. And the guy did the scene. It went on for about 15 minutes. At the end, the kids were crying, he was crying, because the outcome was, they went, oh, you're gay, that's okay, but you still love us, right? He goes, of course I still love you. And they went, then everything's okay. And it was a beautiful scene. And because it came from his life and all that, he said, I really appreciate it. That was a wonderful cathartic experience for me. Because he was getting ready, the kicker was, he was getting ready to tell his kids that. He said, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to tell my kids I'm gay, I'm divorcing their mother because I want to live with this man. And I went, well, why don't you practice it with my troupe? And he did that, and because it was so powerful and it was so real, he said, it was an intimate thing for me. Could you not do that in the show? You can do anything you want about homosexuality, but don't do that scene. I
All
was
right.
like, "Ah!" So of course I did not do it. But he told
You changed all the words and did something very similar.
no, I didn't do it. But he called me 2 weeks later and told me he told his kids, and it went almost exactly the way he role played it. He remember the question that his kids asked him was, "Do you love us?" And he made sure when he told them, they kept on re-emphasizing, "I love you, I love you, I love you." So realest thing I ever saw, and I guess that's what it's about. Seeing those little moments of reality in the workshop.
Right. I enjoyed my little Sunday night thing because so few of us, we work a lot and we do long improvisations, like 10 or 15 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and it just goes, and it's guided by the people on the sidelines who take the role of the coach and who keep us aloft by asking us by signaling us,
Mm-hmm.
in various ways.
So, I would like to, I guess, with my improv experience, I'd like to continue where 1 week I'm working with elderly citizens, maybe 1 week prisoners, maybe 1 week actors, because it always keeps me fresh and always keeps my mind working. Now, how am I going to make this work?
Do you improvise with Jody?
Not at home. It's really strange, because I understand you have kind of the same problem improvising with your ex-wife, but because I play also a different role in improv workshops, it's almost not that, I seduce everyone I play with, but it's like, I'm playing with Jody now. Richard Mover put us through a very heavy improv that went on for about 20 minutes about the destruction of a relationship, which was very hard to play.
You did it with Jody?
Did it with me and Jody. He led it. He directed it.
Uh-huh.
And very experimental also, because we're both on stage at the same time, but in 2 different locations doing activities that showed how depressed we were. We were successful.
So where did you go?
We went to saying that we're going to break up, to what
I'm talking about where? Location.
Oh, Jody was in her bedroom,
Uh-huh.
and I was in a dressing room.
And you went back and forth?
We back and forth in terms of we were showing what we were doing in those environments.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like in 2 different situations on stage at the same time. What was easy about it was being able to touch Jody and hug her and kiss her. We already have that intimacy, so it's not difficult to recreate. But playing with each other was kind of strange. Because I've also, Jody first met me as she was a student in someone else's improv class, and I was touted as this master improviser.
Uh-huh.
No.
Well, she seems very assertive now.
Oh yeah, she does. She's learned to grow because her first experience with improv was it's all verbal, and it's like don't think about it, just do it. That's the best advice I can ever give her, and she just gets better as she keeps on doing it. But 2 less than 1 improv class together is always kind of interesting.
All right, so if you don't play with your wife, who do you play with? On a 1-to-1 basis or a 1-to-2 basis?
I guess it's what you define as playing. It's not doing the traditional who, what, where, but I play with everyone at work every day. I have this role with this one person, Suzanne, where I come in, I do what I would consider stand-up for 20 minutes, and we just joke around with each other, and we have little things that we do with each other, and finishing each other's sentences. And my closest friend, Gabe, who's a comedian, we play every day on the phone.
What part do you play?
It's not a certain part. He may call me up going, "Oh, I just saw an old girlfriend, and oh, she is pregnant." And I'll just go, "Oh, then I guess you're getting older now, aren't you?"
So that's your European cynic, philosopher, whatever, right?
There's different roles I play with people. I do play with Jody. Every time I play, the subtext is that, life sucks, we're all going to die, but let's make the best of it.
What about the role of your father, which I saw you play during the Improv Olympics? You used it as a
Well, I'm just beginning to understand.
act.
I'm just beginning to understand my father, maybe because I'm going through things now that he has already gone through. My father was married when he was 25. I got married when I was 26. And just realizing that, I'm 30, I'm a husband, and when my father was 30, he was a husband too. I'm just trying to understand that and seeing the parallels between myself now as a son going through these things for the first time, my father who's 64 and is retired and has gone through it, but never really, sat down and talked to me about, when I was married for the first 2 years, Michael. I'm just beginning to understand him. And I also make the effort to reach out to him a lot more. Because he tends to think of it as, well, I'm retired, my life is over, I might as well sit down and watch TV for the rest of my life. And me, it's like, no, you can go out and play, you can travel, you can do these things, really.
Get a hobby, Dad.
Get a fucking hobby. Go out, learn how to operate that VCR, tape things and go out and enjoy the world.
All right, what are some of the other characters that you have learned to play? You got the dealer.
I could be a good dealer. I could be a good judge. I could be a great judge. One of the things I do at work, I guess people call it the class clown or the jester, but I guess I play the role of the comic or the fool or something like that. I play that pretty well. The understanding friend, the well-balanced, understanding friend, I can play that really well.
Yeah, Alder plays that.
I could also be the most manipulative, caustic son of a bitch on the face of the earth. And I enjoy that role once in a while, too. I feel extremely bad and guilty about it afterwards, but I do enjoy that role once in a while.
You don't play old people, do you?
Probably because up until recently, I've been scared to death of old people.
Mm.
My grandparents were, my first memory of them, they were already way into their 80s. My mother's parents. And they were kind of like the strange creature who spoke a foreign language. But my mother's parents are Italian, Sicilian Italians, and were ceased going on. But being an 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid, I was kind of afraid of them.
I was doing a workshop in Chicago, and I asked everybody to go through these different stages and whatnot until they were like 80 years old. And Sharna Halpern, she just froze against the wall because to her, the sense of being 80 years old was so frightening to her and paralyzed her, and she felt terrible all day after that. But she only 80 years old for 1 minute.
Well, most of my relatives who are elderly, I have a lot of relatives who are in their 80s and 70s, were always dependent or bothered or close to senility. It wasn't until I was exposed to elderly people in Richard Moore's workshops about 2 years ago that I saw how the humorous and what gifts they still have and what sheer joy it was to play with them. So I was playing with people who were, one was blind, another one was hard of hearing, another one couldn't walk, but it was just so much fun to be with. And they all trusted Richard implicitly. So he would just come in and go, this is Michael who's going to play with us. And they go, wonderful, let's play with Michael.
Okay, so Michael, just pretend that you're in a position to make a decision and tell me what you're going to do next year.
Next year? Well, I may move.
No, I'm talking about improvisation.
Improvisation?
Yes.
I may move to do improvisation. I may get a workshop together again with people I enjoy playing with, like yourself and Shelley and Jenny and Bill and Richard. I think it's nice to have a core group where every once in a while you go, hey, let's get a space and let's just play. So I have a funny feeling there may be a phone call from me going, I have a space on Bleecker Street and for the next 10 Saturdays from 12 to 2, we're going to play. Be there. Aloha.
You don't feel like working with a specific group, not your friends, but somebody out there in Queens or the Bronx or Staten Island,
No, not
New Jersey.
Not really at the present. I went to see a movie recently on 23rd Street and 9th Avenue, and I was walking down 9th Avenue after I saw the movie. I passed something called the National Improvisational Theater.
That's Tamara Wilcox.
Ah, okay. And I went, well, this is interesting. It's a building with a big sign out front, National Improvisational Theater, and they got a list of famous alumni, and 3 or 4 of them I know. And I went, well, maybe I just give them my resume and go, hey, I'm Michael Golding, Master Improviser.
Yeah.
What do you say? Use me.
You could teach there if you became a member of their group.
Yes, I guess I'll have to call them up and write them a letter and go, hey, I exist. Do you know who I am? Here's my press. Here's my tape. So that idea flashed for about a quarter of a second.
Well, you'd have to become a member of the Ron Hubbard group.
The Ron Hubbard group.
Yeah, that's what goes on there. That's your calling card, really.
So that's just an idea, but I'm more involved in writing now. so that, people with huge amounts of power can turn it down. So, we'll see.
Well, I would love to see you do a group, in a period of a month or 2 months or 3 months and bring it into some kind of a showcase.
I mean, improv is going to be a huge part of something I plan to do in the future with Richard Move and Bill Balzac, because they have the space at the Gene Frankel Theater, and Frankel has offered them the invitation of doing a play written specifically for them, and everything they've read, they've said they're very unhappy with, and they went, why don't you write a play for us? And then we'll take it, we'll workshop it, then we'll probably develop it through improvisation, and then you can direct it if you like. So that's a possibility. I came up with an idea recently, and I may work on over the summer.
Okay, great. And if you want to write any scenarios for us with 2